Hi all, hope you're doing well. This is Maro. So this morning, World of Warships on their development blog announced that Summers will be joining Smoland and will be leaving the armory shop. In their announcement, they state that starting from 10.2, Summers will become unavailable to obtain from the armory for an undefined period of time. So clearly, in the past, sometimes they would hint or suggest that the ship would be coming back in some other mode. Here, they're saying undefined, so not clear if the ship will ever be back. She will be replaced with another American ship, Tier 10 cruiser Austin. So what this effectively means is that you have another 3 months or so if you want to acquire Summers. Summers is currently available for 25,000 steel. So with the upcoming Snowflake event and potential to get some steel during that time, and also the 25% off in resources coupon also coming online in just a few days, this may be the best chance to get the ship. Now, obviously, I got curious to see how has Summers performed. I've seen a lot of her in the most recent tournaments. I think the COTS tournament and the Verizon tournament. And I was just wanted to see if the maple syrup stats for the third quarter of 2020 um, offer any clues in terms of her performance and maybe potential reasons why she's being removed. In the previous removal of, I guess, 5 ships, World of Warships stated it's because of their popularity and battle performance. Here, they offer no clue why they're taking Summers out of the store. Some of you may be familiar with my analysis of Smoland, which you can see here. I take a look at the maple syrup data. I take a look at the number of players, number of battles on the global aggregated basis. I take a look at the win percentage and the average damage and how does it compare across the tier 10 destroyers. And then in the Smolant analysis, I took it a step further to see if the composition of players in the number of battles that they do changes the outcome in the win percentage and the average damage numbers. In the case of Smoland, I concluded that better players were playing her more often and they were actually overstating the how good the ship is and the influence that the ship has on the random battles. Now, I think in that analysis, I spotted an error that I made that slightly overstated the adjusted win percentage, meaning if you adjust the composition of players and the number of battles that they play by how good they are, what that win percentage is. In these tables here, I will reflect the adjusted numbers. So with that, I think it's the time for us to dive into the analysis. First, number of players. And here, Summers comes in third from the bottom. Given that she's a steel ship and not widely available, it's not surprising that a lot of players don't have her. So if a lot of players don't have you, then in terms of number of battles, you're also not going to feature very highly. And here, Summers is the fourth from the bottom. Kaba actually falls further down, so while more players have played her, they didn't play as many games in her. In terms of win percentage, Summers is ranked much higher, second just behind Smoland with 54.5%. Daring, the first Tech 3 ship, is third with 53.1. And lastly, in terms of damage, Summers is head over shoulders above others. With 58,000, Kleber is second, 51. And obviously, these average damage numbers are a mix of the ship's role on the team. Is it a torboat? Is it going more for damage against larger ships such as battleships and cruisers? Or is it more of a destroyer hunter? However, some interesting things emerge here. Somers has 58,000 in average damage. Another pure torp ship, Shimakaze, has 43,000, and that's a pretty big difference for ships that you would expect fulfill the same role on the team. Now, in my Smoland video, I've spent a considerable amount of time drilling down into type of players as ranked by maple syrup in terms of classes, so depending on their win percentage. How many battles have the good players played? How many battles have the bad players played? And how does that overall mix of battles influence the score? And you can see that on this chart here. Now, Smoland and Somers have quite a lot of good players playing quite a lot of battles, which definitely has an impact on the score. And here I do the similar analysis for Somers. So we have three Somers outlined in red. Somers as reported, Somers A, which is the average for the server, so the mix as it would be for all of the ships that were played during the third quarter. And then Somers G, which is if the composition of players was the same as the one for gearing. And we can see that the results differ, a lot from what we have just on the basis of the unadjusted data. And it's pretty amazing to see how close Somers G is to gearing if you adjust the player mix. So I did the same thing for average damage, and here the results don't change as much. All three iterations of Somers have the top three spots. So I think that clearly outlines the damage that Somers does, how much it stands apart from her peers. But what I wanted to do here is actually take it a step further. Here, I wanted to do something else. I actually wanted to compare all of the destroyers, looking at the average for the server. So the next two slides will show what the win percentage is and the average damage if each ship was played with the same composition of players and they had the same numbers of battles. So first, here is the win percentage chart. And this chart looks unlike any other that I've looked at. First of all, Daring comes out on top, 50.7%. Somers is in second place, 50.7. I'm rounding at the first decimal point, hence the Somers comes in second. Smoland is third, 50.5%. But the most important fact on this chart is that the difference between the first, in terms of winning, Daring, and the last, Shimakaze, is only 0.8%. Variation is it's almost not there. You have equal chance of winning regardless of what ship you play once you adjust for the player mix. So I did the same thing for average damage, and here are the results. Somers is still on top and still is standing far apart from her peers. But in the second place, there is Kleber, followed by Harugumo, Holland, Khabarovsk. So it seems quite a lot of gunboats follow her, although Somers, a torpedo boat, stands apart. And then at the bottom you have Z-52, Grozovoi, Smoland, Marceau, which is unexpected. I wouldn't think that a ship like Marceau would be so low in terms of damage. But there she is. And from that, what I would think is that it's not only what the ship is capable of, it's also how is the ship played in the game. And for example, Marceau, my expectation would have been it's a gunship, it's shooting at battleships on the flanks, it's scoring a lot of damage using the high rate of fire. But no, it seems that she's played differently. Either she participates in a lot of cap fights with the destroyers, maybe that's where she's the most effective, and hence her damage numbers are so low. Because when I think of Summers and compare her to Gearing, I don't see that much difference. If anything, I would argue that Gearing would be a better ship when played in randoms. Gearing has the same torps as Summers, Mark 17s. Gearing has a higher rate of fire, HE DPM, AP DPM, when the captain skills are equally distributed. Gearing has access to the unique upgrade, which gives it one of the best concealments. Gearing has better AA than Summers. Summers AA is almost non-existent. Gearing's AA, especially when you equip the DFAA, and with the recent boosts in DFAA, can, provide for a decent AA defense. The only thing where Gearing lacks is it's a little slower, so by 2 or so knots. And the torps that the Gearing has, it has 2 launchers of 5 torps versus Summers, which has 3 launchers of 4 torps each. So Summers has 12 torps versus 10. In terms of reload speed, it's just about the same. I think Gearing is a couple seconds faster. In terms of DPM, Summers has an edge, but it's how big of an edge is it? It's 2 extra torps. I guess it's around 34,000 DPM. And could that really be responsible for so much incremental damage from this ship versus Gearing, especially if you spec them the same? Or is it that Gearing is played entirely differently on the servers versus Summers, and as a result, the damage that you get from different ships varies? And I guess maybe to really get to the bottom of this, one would have to look category by category of players. And I guess in this case, I think the most relevant really would be how do the best players do? Because you would assume that the best players have figured out the right way to play the ship. And if they are playing all the ships right, then the damage indicator would be more accurate in terms of what the ships are able to achieve. So of course, I couldn't just let it go. I had to take a look. So this chart has exactly that data. Class A, which is the winning rate 65 to 100, Q3 2020, global aggregate average damage. And what we see here is Summers, again on top, 67,276. But the second ship right behind her now is Kleber, and then Khabarovsk. And as you can see here, the average damage is not ways off. And then we have Marceau. Marceau was closer to the bottom. Now Marceau is closer to the top. And then we have Harugumo, Holland, Smoland, again 60,000. And then as we go through the destroyers, we get to Gearing, third from the bottom, 53,840. So clearly, the way the best players play Gearing and Summers suggests that Summers is just a much better destroyer than Gearing, despite what the stats say, especially when it comes to their ability to get more damage out of the ship. Because in terms of winning percentage, it was close once you adjust for the player base, but in terms of damage, there are clear differences between the ships. And I think especially the differences between when you adjust the player base in terms of damage, and when you look at the best players and their damage, I think it clearly tells you which ships are harder to play and where you really need the skill to do well. And clearly, Marceau appears to be one of those. Now, I may want to take a look at this closer just to see what the differences are and what ships stand out the most. But for now, I think it's time to bring this video to the end. And looking back on all the charts and all the data, it's clear to me that Summers is able to do a lot more damage. Average players are able to do a lot more damage in this ship. Now, when I say average players, I mean when you actually adjust for the player mix, clearly it's easier to do a lot of damage in this ship than it is in some other ships, and to be closer in terms of damage to better players. Now, what impact you have on the game and ability to swing it from a loss to a win, that's I think a different story. But in terms of just absolute damage, you don't necessarily need to be a highly skilled player to do well, again, in terms of damage in a Summers. Is that the reason that the World of Warships has decided to take the ship from their store? I don't know. They did not indicate what the reason is. Obviously, there are challenges in playing this ship given how many CVs you encounter in every day-to-day battle, but nevertheless, the damage numbers are there. So, that's all from me. I hope I shed some light on this ship and how it's positioned and how well it performs in World of Warships, at least based on 1/4's worth of data. So with that, I come to the end of this video. I hope you found it informative. I wish you the best of luck on the high seas. Maro, out.